Let's just do it.
Let us go. Hey, everybody.
Sorry, we have somebody walking through the set.
Capitalism works.
It's a hell of a drug.
No one likes most of the jobs that are available for us to work in.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that we all have to work to live is, quite frankly, bleak.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can imagine just actually being able to have time to do a quarter of the things you like and still not suffer greatly financially, that would be a hell of a world.
And if only my passion in life was helping irate customers find cough syrup in a Shoppers Drug Mart, then I would have found...
You'd be golden.
Yeah, I would have found the perfect job for me a long time ago.
A long time ago, yeah. We all have to start somewhere for sure.
Yeah, but like minimum wage is a whole other, like...
Well, this is the thing.
issue.
Minimum wage is like a ridiculous, I was going to say price. Well, it kind of is a ridiculous price, but
You're
it's
buying
not
people's time.
enough money. It's not a livable wage.
Yeah, I think what is minimum wage now in Ontario?
I
Like,
think it's under
for-
16.
Oh.
It's like 15 something, 15.75 or something like that.
I remember when I first started working. Obviously,
Oh.
not that long ago because I'm young.
Yeah, a couple of years ago when it was still 8.75.
But like even then, it was like, okay, it's minimum wage. It's like one of my first jobs. I'll take it. You know.
Yeah,
Actually,
of course.
Actually, what was your first job?
Okay. My first job, no, I'm just laughing because it's Shoppers Drug Mart and we both worked there. That was my first real job. I think I worked there for a day. Maybe two. I got really scared.
I completely understand. I worked at Shoppers Drug Mart for like 3 years. Like,
That's fair.
shout out to Loblaws.
Yeah, fuck you.
Like my first job was at 11.
Yeah.
I did not consider it a real job because it was delivering newspapers.
Oh, that's a job. You got paid.
Well, my issue with the not being a real job was that, yeah, I got paid $100 a month
Yeah.
to deliver newspapers 3 times a week and put them together. Like, is this legal? No, it's not because I'm 11.
Was
But
it like a
also-
cash job or was it paid?
No, they
like...
paid it.
Also, can somebody tell me if that's still a thing? Because,
Delivering papers?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
like, people on bikes throwing them?
Well, not...
Sorry, I
don't know
just
about
picture it
those.
like movies.
I was not
What?
on a bike.
What?
You had to walk to each.
Oh, fuck that shit.
I'm sure there are people who still do that, but they go in their cars now. Yeah.
The dream is over.
The dream has died. And that's the thing. When you have these minimum wage jobs when you're younger, that's fair enough. People are like, okay,
Yeah.
that's fair enough. But now we live in a world where you have to have like 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs, and you're not that young anymore.
And you're still barely getting by.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
just fucking criminal. It's
Ooh.
awful.
Like when you see grandma riding that bicycle throwing newspapers at people,
Yeah.
then we got a problem, you
She's
know?
getting written up for taking too long, and we
It's like-
joke, but...
If that were something, if it was a norm for people to be able to just work one job, maybe they work their passion and get a living wage, then I wouldn't be so like, ugh, when I see people who are like much older than like the job really calls for, like things that you're on your feet all the time,
Yeah.
you're like constantly lifting stuff, and then you're like, you know, they're not getting paid that much, and
Yeah.
I'm like, they are doing this because they have to, not because
Yeah,
they want to.
Exactly.
And that's something that I like.
A lot of people retire from their, like, careers and then find out pensions aren't enough to really live on and then go and get jobs a lot of the time in retail because it's an entry-level job, right? It's something you can kind of just get into. And there's still not a lot of exceptions made. Like, I've worked in a few places that will be a little bit, like, nicer and be like, hey, you know, if you need to take breaks, like, more often, that's okay. Or they'll be like, don't try to learn the POS. Don't worry about it. You're going to do this instead. But some places are just as, like, fucking horrible.
I had a place that once, and to be fair, this person was not a proper supervisor. They were a person who was allowed to get away with a bunch of BS that they shouldn't have
But, like,
been.
don't do anything.
Yeah, you know that like self-aggrandizing personality some people have where they're like, I am a great employee by making everyone think that everyone else is shitty employees, you know? And so there was one job I worked at where a woman would time how long you were in the bathroom for. And I was
That's
like,
insane.
this is a gross overstep of boundaries.
That definitely shouldn't be legal.
Yeah, but she would do that and then tell the owner. Then the owner would like come and be like, "Oh, I've been noticing that so and so has been taking more time than they should be," kind of thing. And I was like, "This is so messed up."
You would really just like embarrass the fuck out of them so easily though too. Be like, "Oh, sorry, I was having like terrible diarrhea for like a week," and they'd be like, "Oh."
Yeah, like just stand outside the bathroom with a stopwatch.
Yeah, just.
But that's the thing is, I find that not only are people not getting paid enough, but they're being asked to do much more than what their job requires with very little respect.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's very few jobs that I've worked that I thought I was getting paid enough to do. And then I have mostly worked minimum wage jobs. Like most of my jobs have been minimum wage. Because I worked in retail.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them have been like way above and beyond what that pay should be.
What was your like worst job? If one of your previous employers from this job, whatever job it is in your head, just imagine for
going
a second,
through the numbers here.
If every one of your previous employers called you and said, "We will give you your job back at our place," which one would you be like, "No, like I will die before I go back"?
Oh man. I haven't a lot of jobs. Most of them were fine. A lot of them were okay, and it just didn't fit. Well, the one I would never go back to. It was an independent store. It's like a pet food store, pet supplies, whatever. They had me come in for a training shift, which they did not pay me for. And I was supposed to do that and then come in for like a real full shift the next day. But I did my training shift, and so the guy's wife was working there. Super sweet lady, lovely lady. But she kept like peppering in all these things about why other people left. And she was like, a lot of people said a lot of things about this place. And I don't know why she told me this. Maybe she was trying to warn me. But she's talking about how terrible her husband is, who's the owner.
Oh, that's
and dropping
fun.
in stuff about like, oh, like he doesn't let me do this. And I was like, oh, that sucks. Like he should. And then anyway, she was like, I'm just telling you now, if you look up this store, if you see any stuff about it, like there was a lawsuit. They had a huge sexual assault lawsuit against the boss who hired me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I just never went back.
Surprise, it's sexual assault.
Yeah, surprise.
Oh.
Not that funny of a story, but
when
like
the safety of other people.
I know.
Like the owners of these places only want a workforce because they can't hire, they can't take the step to get a therapist. I worked at a place. It was like a bakery, and the owner of that place was legitimately, you didn't know what they were going to be like day to day.
Oh, yeah.
And by the end of it, it was like suspicions flying around. No, there's sabotage. People are sabotaging me. It was like legit Mr. Burns Spruce Moose.
I said hop in.
Exactly, like pure Smithers energy for me. Like I was like, all right, I can't be here anymore. I gots to leave. This whole thing that's going on with like the act your wage and like what is the other one?
We were just talking about this. Quiet quitting, yeah.
Something like that. I think that's fair. I worked at a telephone surveying place which is also a circle of hell.
Yeah, I haven't done that. And I feel fortunate.
Yeah.
To be honest, no offense. I've been in the position where I could apply, and I was like, only if I have to.
You're like, this is a last ditch effort.
Not judgment on the job itself, just I don't know if everyone can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could handle it.
Well, I had a weird Pavlovian response to ringing phones after that, so I
can imagine.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
I get that.
Right. But when I worked there, it was like I would come in early for myself, for my own mental sanity, and I'd come in half an hour early all the time, so I could sit there and breathe and meditate
Prepare.
a little bit. Yes. Tell myself that I'm okay and I'll get out of this job soon enough. And get ready before I started the phones. I would come in at like 8:30 all the time. I didn't have to start until 9, and they wouldn't pay you until 9 when you started your auto dialer. So that's something to remember. So one day I came in, it was like 5 minutes or 10 minutes before my shift, because I was running late. Well, on my schedule, I was running
you were
late.
still not late for work.
Yeah, and I would come in, and the supervisor, he came up to me, he was like, Rhiannon, you're late for work. And I was like, I'm not. And he was like, no, well, you're usually here at 8:30. It's like, yeah, but you don't pay me to be here at 8:30.
Yeah, this idea that employers have where they're like, you have to arrive 15 minutes early for your shift. No, you don't. You literally don't, because you're not getting paid. I mean, you might have to, because they might fire you if you don't. And that's a different thing. But like, ultimately, if I'm not getting paid for it, I'm not going to come in. It doesn't matter if I show up at 8:45 or 8:58. As long as I'm like in my seat at 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's bullshit.
Well, I love when they try to change it around and be like, "Oh, it's for you guys. It's so that
they
you
do
can
say
relax
that." Yeah, they're like, "It's
and
for you guys to
whatever."
have time to yourself." I'm like, "That's
No.
literally my business."
My time to myself can be.
It's
me,
just that.
Yeah, like counting my blessings before I start this job. Like when I'm in a meeting and you know that everything outside of that meeting is in shambles. It's chaos. No one
And they're
likes
just
their
acting
job.
like it's fine.
They're like, we're a family, and you're like, I want to burn this place to the ground.
We can't even just be honest about it.
Yeah, like this place is not a family. It's a family in the sense that I want to strangle my sibling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would much rather your boss be like, hey, I really want everyone to feel comfortable here, and I want everyone to feel respected, but at the end of the day, it's a job, and you need to do your job. Like, I'd rather be spoken to like that than like, hey, everybody, we're a family here. By the way, worst employee of the month is Kaylee. Like, Kaylee, you are getting fired. Like,
by the way, we're taking your benefits, and
Yeah.
you're not allowed to have vacation.
also, if you use your cell phones on the floor, you will be dismissed immediately. I don't care if
and
your
shut
mom's
it
in the
down.
hospital.
Oh,
Devin.
God.
But we were talking about situations like that when you have, especially with the pandemic, like the first year of 2020, that says a lot.
Yep.
That sums it up. The
There were
first
12
year
years
of
in 2020.
Everyone was like, well, not everyone, but a lot of people were very understanding. It was like, oh my gosh, of course, like, take all the time you need if you need to do this, if you need to, like, have mental health days and all. And then it just went out the window with every other precaution in the fucking world. But yeah, it was like, even getting COVID, having like close contacts, working at places where they would just be like, so you can't come in, and I'm like, no, legally I shouldn't be coming in.
Morally,
I live in a
spiritually.
house with someone who has COVID. No, I shouldn't come in. And they're like, what are you trying to tell me? I'm like, I'm trying to tell you to fill the ship.
Quite frankly, I think you're giving me a bit of attitude right now. I'm gonna write you up on it. I'm sick and tired of workplaces not hiring the amount of staff that you would
Oh my
need
God.
to cover those days off. Like, oh, you can't have a day off because you're the only person who knows how to do this
Yep.
thing. It's like, well, why am I the only
It's
person?
a you problem, frankly.
Yeah. Especially if you are not in a supervisory position.
Yeah.
So you, as a supervisor, are telling me, as a person you supervise, that I can't have a day off because there's no one else that you trained to
Yeah,
do
because they don't have
the
enough
same
staff.
thing. Yeah, because you don't have enough staff for people to take a day off.
They're always completely like flummoxed when somebody takes a sick day.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, how could you do this to us right now? And it's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I got to deal with my life right now. Like, I've started, when I have to take time off work, I don't say, can I have this time off? Like, if it's for something important, I just say, hey, I'm afraid I won't be able to make it in today. I'm ill. And if I
that's
need
fair.
to, I will turn off my phone. Because, yeah, I've been through a lot of bullshit with this, too, with, like, getting fired for taking sick days and stuff. And it's insane. It's completely ridiculous. Like,
That's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Especially, like, we talk about physical health. First and foremost, there's, like, that whole suspicion, like, if you're taking a day off, are you actually sick?
it shouldn't matter.
It
Well,
shouldn't matter.
yeah.
Like, now they're calling them personal days in a lot of companies because it's like, oh, we can't, like, you're not supposed to ask, right? But there was a thing on our old system that would ask, like, oh, what is this? Is this like a personal day, like a
Or a
mental health
sick
day,
day?
or like a this? And it's like, so if you're trying to get away from it, fair. But then you ask me why I'm taking the day
It's
off,
really-
and you're not, do I need to be legitimately physically sick? I could just be having a rough time and I do not have the capacity to go into work.
And like, people will always say they approve of like mental health days and stuff, but when it comes down to it, it almost never is the case. And there's a case of like, how much do you want to divulge to your employer, you know, about your mental or physical health? How much do you really need to, you know, for the most part, unless it's something highly contagious that's going to kill somebody. I don't really think you need to be like, hey, yeah, I have like this specific medical condition. I mean, it shouldn't really matter. Like,
as long as it's not affecting your job, you know what I mean? Like, a sick day is a sick day. It wouldn't matter if I caught a cold or it was due to a chronic condition that I had.
Yeah, exactly.
I was watching a clip of Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Talking about one of his employees who had come in and like wanted to have, but they didn't come in. They were saying that they wanted to have like a mental health day.
Sure.
And just like, they're too stressed out. They're too anxious. And he was like, oh no, you can't have that. Oh, you're stressed. Everyone's stressed. It's like, yeah, that's sort of the issue. If your job is to fly a plane, right?
Yeah, I really like my pilot to be feeling good.
Oh yeah, like I don't want my pilot being there like tweaking out, being like, gonna fly this into a mountain.
And I think the thing that employers and companies and whatever extent that has
overlords
don't understand is like, you know, if you give people a little bit of like an understanding and a little bit of compromise, they're going to be much better workers. Yeah. Obviously, extra compensation financially is ideal, but like there are other things that are important, and having somebody respect your physical and mental health is like a fucking low bar. But
we've both worked some retail jobs, some more than others.
Yeah.
Hail to the queen.
Oh God. Captive.
The retail sphere has this backwards idea that like everybody wants you to be cheery and happy and
Can't
like
stand this.
It's horrible, right? Like I hate it when people come up to me in stores when they're like, "Oh, hey, how can I help you?" I'm like, "What do you want? I don't have any money in my wallet. Please leave me alone."
Are you trying to rob me? Like what?
Exactly. Oh yeah.
Most of the people in these like head offices in retail corporations have never worked in retail because they usually have taken like business or something. I don't know what the fuck they do, but don't care. One of my old jobs, which was Blacks, which doesn't exist anymore. Blacks is photography. I loved that job. We processed film. We took in like did like minor photo editing and stuff, and at the time printed a lot of photos because that was still a thing. Which is why it went out of business. But anyways, we would have our district manager, Dominic, or the Dominator, as my assistant manager used to call him. And he would come into Black's, a retail store in like Midtown, little store that was mostly like, our clientele was like seniors, basically, old people coming in and printing photos of their grandkids most of the time.
Aww.
And he came in like a full 3-piece suit and was like, I'm going to work here today and I'm going to show you guys I'm going to make $500 in the first hour I'm here, or something ridiculous like that. But he genuinely, like, somebody would come in and be like, hey, welcome to Blacks. And they'd be like, oh my God, like startling these old people. And everyone hated it. They'd all be like, oh, you're the girl I usually come to. And they'd like just come up and
you're
talk
the one
back.
with a calm attitude.
Yeah. The amount of stores that I've worked at where they've asked me to greet customers by saying, welcome to store name. Like, welcome to Walmart. Like, no, we don't need to do
where
that.
we are.
Yeah. We don't want to be there.
Like, we're all just random people wandering in and out of stores like, welcome to Bulk Barn. Oh, this is where I am.
If somebody said that to me, I would be alarmed.
Yeah.
Like, I'm nice to retail people because I am retail people. So
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, hey, how are you? But, like, fuck off also.
Sometimes I just want to wander the aisles
Yeah.
aimlessly. That is how I get it. We all get it. We gotta really watch that Sudafed aisle.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it and then I'm gonna look the other way.
Yeah,
but anyway.
You don't pay me enough to be a security guard as well. Cashier extraordinaire, yes. Security guard, no. MMA fighter, hell no.
Somebody tried to steal some groceries and people chased them down and tackled them, which you're legally not allowed to do.
You're discouraged.
Like, you are not a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that. If people want to steal, I mean, there's not much you can really do. You can call the police, I guess, if you want.
Like, that's the thing, though.
But-
You're like, I'm like, literally, like, I'll hold the door for you, sir. You don't pay me
And this is
enough.
another
And
thing.
you have insurance.
You're way above my pay grade, and you have
Yeah.
insurance, and you're fucking one of the richest. Not
Richest.
fucking one of the richest people. Maybe.
I mean, maybe.
Probably.
Like we said, I used to work at Shoppers, and the one that I worked at constantly had people stealing like baby formula, because there was this thing where.
You couldn't pay me enough to stop
Yeah,
somebody from
yeah.
doing that.
But the reason was that like people were stealing it excessively. It's because there was a big shortage of it in China, and where I lived there was a big Asian population, and so what would happen is like people would steal a bunch of it and then sell it back to people or send it back rather to people back home. But we had a manager who was like took it upon himself to be like Ramboing it out, like full 80s action style kind of stuff.
Kind of funny, but it's crazy.
But he followed this person who was stealing some baby formula out of Shoppers,
Also
yelling at
legally
them.
not allowed to do.
Not allowed to do. And then tried to like get it back from this person. They had a getaway car outside of the store. The person threw my manager onto the ground, almost got run over by the tire of the getaway car. I was like, never do that again.
For what?
Oh.
It's a bizarre personality trait.
Yeah, we don't need to do these things. I just feel like a lot of employers need to be a little bit more realistic about what they're asking people to do, especially in the day and age where we have enough information that we all know what's going on.
That's the thing. And again, you'd think we would have learned something in the last 3 years or whatever it's been. We effectively learned almost nothing, which is depressing as fuck. The jig is up. We all know that everyone's being exploited at this point. I don't think anyone can argue it. We need to start like actually valuing people.
Oh,
because our world is going to shit because of it.
Speaking on exploiting people, like this whole thing about unpaid training and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god! Like I read an article about some PetSmart employees that are like suing PetSmart.
As they should.
Right? Because they had a grooming program that were told at the beginning that was free, and somewhere in a clause of their contract said that they had to work there for at least 2 years. What they didn't know is that the entire course is $5,000. If you, for any reason, if you got fired, if you got laid off, if you had like a medical emergency so you couldn't work there anymore, you have to pay that $5,000 back in their clause. And I was like, yeah, sue them. Oh my god.
That's a bold move.
That's a bold move.
Like, that is brazen.
You're literally saying you have to have this specific training program that we put together, but also it's only free if we own your soul for 2 years.
They better not get away. They won't. They can't.
I hope they win that case because
they have to for the good of
for the
humanity at this point.
For the good of us all. But yeah, like, have you ever had like an unpaid training situation?
I probably have done more than once, like a job where again they were like, "Hey, come in for a couple of hours, see how it feels." And I mean, when you're looking for a job and you're trying to pay your rent, unfortunately, the reality of the situation is you're really not in a position to argue. You're and they know that, and that's why they do it.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I mean, 2 hours or whatever that you're coming in, you should be compensated for. Training should always be paid. Even more importantly, you should never have to pay for. I don't believe you should have to pay for anything in order to be employed somewhere. There are some reasonable boundaries, of course, but like for the most part, I think at this point, letting people kind of wear what they want and have a name tag is good enough.
Not for me. I'm gonna walk into my shopper's job in a mesh bodysuit, and they're gonna have to deal with it.
And they're gonna make a shit ton of money.
Like, what aisle is that in?
God, we've had an uptick of sales. People are buying more lottery tickets than ever. It's a fucked up thing that's happening with the. I mean, I like the self checkouts, I do, but
Oh yeah,
it's causing a
self-checkouts.
big shortage in jobs that were really, really easy for most people to get, like grocery store jobs and
Yes.
jobs like shoppers, cashier jobs, which really unfortunate.
Well, let's be honest here. They made those self-checkouts, obviously, so they could cut down on paying people for labor. However, it's a stupid backward idea because guess what happens when you have more self-checkouts? People steal all the things. Which you deserve.
Yeah, you absolutely deserve.
You do deserve at that point. So training.
Unpaid training.
They Trojan horsed my training as like an interview in the sense that like I was interviewing for a position. It was in another country. I needed a job. I was living like just outside the city, so commuting into the city was like there and back almost $20 each day. Yeah. This was a 4-part interview, by the way, that I did not know. I did not know until I was into the second interview. One of them I had to teach a class, and the other one I had to write an essay on why this job would be
ridiculous.
After a cover letter, by the way, mind you. I had to write an essay on why it was good for the job and why I was so passionate about the job. In-house. Yeah, I got the job, but that was after I told them, I need to know now if you're going to give me a job or not. Because I've spent about $80 now coming in and out of the city.
Did you like the job in the end?
I mean,
have you had any have you had any really terrible interviews? Like, okay, that one. But have you had any other really terrible like interview stories or processes? Or things that you hate about job interviews?
I hate. Okay, so one of the first jobs that real jobs, not my slave labor newspaper job, I had was at Roots.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they had a group interview, which was one of the
I literally shivered.
Yeah, the most nerve-wracking things, but also the most awkward things to do.
They're so awkward.
Because it's like you throw people into the lion's den, and it's like a gladiator style. You could see everyone's face like.
They're all like, fuck this bitch.
I need this job.
I hate group interviews for multiple reasons. One, I get anxious and socially awkward. It's not like my ideal environment. But I hate the competitive aspect of it. Because a couple of things happen. There's always one person who's like, and I hope that would maybe it was you. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But there's one person who's like kind of a dick about it. And they'll kind of like throw people like under the bus a little bit, or be like, well, actually, I think that this is what the most important value of the company. But I don't know, for one, I don't know whether or not the employers want you to compete or if they want you to be nice. But I can't be mean. Like if someone's being more awkward than me and they're shy, my instinct is just be like, that's a really great answer. I also think, like, I can't help. Never got a job from a group interview, ever. I've also opted not to do a lot of them. Now, if I've been offered one, I just say, I have ADHD. Like, I can't focus.
Yeah, there's too many people.
And then they kind of have to do it because it's an accommodation, so.
That's good,
use that shit.
Yeah.
If I have to be fucking neurodivergent, I'll use it. I'll just be like, sorry.
You know what I hate? Those diversity surveys that they have at the end of, like, when you're applying on somebody's system. Like, because I'm always like, yes, I have a lot of these things. Like, is filling it out helping me or is it hurting me? Do you know what I mean? Because, like, I'm a little cynical, just a touch. What if I'm filling this out and the person who is looking to, like, fill the job is racist?
Yeah, exactly.
Or, like, homophobic or, you know.
I think about that every single time. I'm like, I could put this in, but is that helping or hurting me?
Well, I mean, you can't properly do sales if you don't have a penis, Kate. I mean, what are we...
That's always been my downfall. What made you want to work here? Like, I'm broke.
Well, I took a look at my bank account.
Yeah. I felt the giant hole inside me just getting bigger and bigger, and I thought, let's fill that with a job. Why do you want to work at Bulk Barn? I'm like, I love bulk. And I love barns.
Honesty, people. You're like,
I've been hired many times. That's as far as I'll go.
My biggest pet peeve is the actual qualifications that they ask for on job postings for the job that you're looking for. It's like...
I can't.
It's like entry level, but you need 3 years of experience.
My biggest thing is just lie.
That starts at the resume. You're like,
yeah, that's right. Lie about your experience, unless it's like, you know, yes, I have been an underwater welder for many years. Don't lie about something like that.
For sure. Jacques Cousteau was my grandfather.
Yeah, no. Lying can be fun and beneficial.
PSA, kids.
Yeah.
One more.
Have you tried lying? Who cares? Who cares what your education is?
Yeah.
I know. I didn't go to school for cashiering. Like. I've known somebody who had a 2-part job interview for a dishwashing job, and that made me go and sit in a dark room for a few hours. You know, just
like, but
it's. I can't do it anymore.
Can you critically wash the dishes?
Yeah. Those are the other questions.
Tell me a job when you had a dishwashing issue and you successfully like resolved it.
I can't remember.
I see hundreds and hundreds of customers in my retail job.
They're all annoying and it's always fine. I don't know.
When it comes to any people, not just at a job, I deal with them the same way. If you're yelling at me, I will not hear it. When people used to yell at me, I'm like, I hate supervisors and managers sometimes. When you would call them over because you're upholding a rule.
Some traitor fucking bullshit.
Right? You're upholding a rule about exchanges or refunds or whatever. And they're like, I want to speak to the manager. So you do. And then you call them over and they're like, oh, just do it. Oh.
You're a rat.
You're a
fucking rat. If you do that shit, you were a rat bastard.
Blood traitor. Because you did this like illegal, and I'm gonna say
you're
illegal.
Actually not allowed to do this.
Yeah, we're not allowed to. It's against the law. We're not allowed to refund things.
I also hate places where they hire cashiers. This happens a lot in grocery stores and stuff, and they won't allow them to do things like void a line or like and it's simple stuff that will happen in many transactions. You make a mistake keying in bananas, a code for bananas or something. You're like, oh no, I have to void that line. Now I have to call a manager and hold up this grocery line. And it's because they don't trust their employees.
And
it's
because
so insulting.
People are criminals.
Yeah, they think we're stealing all the time.
We're all criminals.
So then you have to page a manager, and then they're like, oh my god, what? What do you need?
The rest of
it's also really demeaning to have to tell a lineup of people buying stuff. I'm actually not allowed to do that. I'm not authorized to do this refund. And they're like, what do you do?
What do you do? I take your shit.
I take your shit and I eat it.
It's not that people are lazy so they're poor nowadays. It's that people have decided they don't want to give like workers their due amount for their salaries. And that's why I support unions.
Yeah.
Unions.
Yeah. And more people should unionize. Yeah, absolutely.
They keep cutting our insurance at work right now. Our health insurance. They're like, by the way, things have changed. And they're like, there's this one perk. And you're like, oh, you're going to pay 20% less for all of my other stuff? Fun. Yeah. Such a perk for me. A chronic illness. Yay.
Yeah.
Not only is it annoying in general for everyone to work right now, it's really annoying for women in workplaces. Like, I've had some real sexist things said to me.
Yeah.
And I've had some real, honestly, criminal situations happen to me at work. And I know that if it's happened to me, it's probably happened to like thousands, if not millions of women around the world, right?
It's really sad actually, because it's just a standard. I don't think I've ever worked somewhere where someone hasn't had and I'm going to use the phrase stalker lightly, but has had somebody who comes in to just browse around while there's a specific woman working there. And they'll be like, oh, by the way, you're going to meet Larry. He really likes Sophia, and he will ask you when she's working. Don't tell him. And it's just accepted. I've had this so many places where they're like, he'll just come in and kind of browse around. He'll ask if she's here. Don't go and get her. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know why nobody's done anything about this. But it's a really normalized thing.
Boys being boys.
Yeah.
Just it's the guys, you know how they are. I was like, no, that's not how, like, that might be how they are.
And it's not even boys being boys, it's usually old men stalking teenage girls.
It's creeps being creeps. You know, even when it's not as nefarious, I had one of the people I worked with who was the head of our school, referenced my menstrual cycle as a reason for why I might be upset about them crossing a lot of boundaries.
So insane.
And
misogynism,
that's a new word. Dress codes.
Oh, yeah.
At my telephone surveying job.
Why would that matter?
There was a Catholic school-like dress code where your skirt had to be past your fingertips when you're standing straight.
For whom?
I don't know.
Why?
All of the guys on the phones, they might have got distracted by your skirt.
That's true.
Under the desk that you're sitting at. It does sound like
you're being kind of a slut.
I know, right? I was whoring it up real hard. not only are there rules for everybody, there's specific rules for women.
Yep. Everyone can recognize when it crosses the line. If it's just like showing the shape of your body, I mean, who cares? Or like low necklines. It's like that thing where they're like, am I showing off my boobs or do I just have boobs?
Or do I just
if you
have
have big boobs or any cleavage, it's gonna happen. If you're wearing a shirt that's like not up to here, like a crew neck, if it's here, like you bend down to get something, you're gonna see tits. I don't know.
Like,
happy birthday?
I know there's gonna be people in the comments here like, well, men always get called out at work because there's sexual harassment. They have to walk around on eggshells. Blah blah blah.
No, you
blah,
don't.
blah.
You just not being weird.
No, just
Don't be
don't
weird.
sexually like harass somebody. Wearing a shirt that shows a little bit more of your chest is not the same as going up to somebody and grabbing their ass.
Yeah.
Or even
We're making weird comments.
making weird comments like, is it your menstrual cycle?
At one job, I genuinely had somebody say, just stand there and look pretty. Which I didn't have to lift any boxes, so patriarchy, thanks. But yeah, I was like, should I do anything? And they were like, you just stand there and look pretty. And I was like, I guess I will. And the same job, I was making a joke about, I can't remember what it was about, like drinking or something. And like how like sometimes when you drink, you wake up with regrets. That's all it was. And it was something like that. And this guy that I was working with said something like, oh, well, it'd be worth it to have regrets if I woke up next to you. And I was like, I'd like to go home now.
Can I get paid an extra week just for that comment?
Yeah, inappropriate. Weird. Very weird. That's the kind of shit that we don't want you to do.
Yes, please don't.
Instead, just don't make that joke. The shopper's job, my first job, I think I was 16. And the first day I was there, I got hit on by a creepy old man when I was alone on cash. And it was really uncomfortable. I still remember it. He was just like, oh, you're gorgeous. And he was like, he said something like, are you married? And I was like, I'm 16. And he was like, I'm just kidding. And I was like, please go away.
No,
I don't even really
I'm
want
not
to
for
talk to
sale.
you.
And no, I don't come with the car. Like,
Yeah, exactly. How are you?
How are you? Like, I remember the same place where the boss mentioned my menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
Was saying that, offhandedly saying to another guy that one of our coworkers needed to learn to put a little bit more makeup on, like a little bit more rouge on her cheeks. Which, the fact they called it rouge...
That says everything you fucking need to know. Shut up.
And
you don't know anything.
So, quite frankly, work sucks, but it also sucks extra hard for certain people.
Yeah, it sucks a little bit more when you're being sexualized for just trying to do your job.
Oh, speaking of... Sorry, not just sexualized.
Yeah.
So I used to work in Vancouver. Vancouver has a very color block-esque version. Yeah,
that's what I've heard.
Yeah, where people are. And I worked at like their first No Frills there. And so No Frills, No Frills is like for all the people who are not from Canada, it's a little bit more of like a discount.
Yeah, it's a discount grocery
store.
Super cheap.
Yeah, super cheap. And in Vancouver, they had Safeway, which is a little bit more of a frou-frou place. So they're used to that.
Okay.
And so where I worked, there were lots of different people. Like our employees were more diverse, yes. But there were no, I think there was like one other black girl.
Uh-huh.
But in that area, not so much.
Right.
So I was working, and the first incident that happened to me was I had busted my finger because I was swinging off a rope into a pool. Okay. I was having a fun time.
Sounds fun. I mean, apart from the finger getting broken.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. That's what it was.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I had a thing wrapped around it, and
I'm not looking forward to this. I'm anxious.
That day, about 10 people in my line looked at my finger and was like, oh, basketball, eh?
What?
And I was like, oh.
Like, don't get me wrong, I am not like, that's a stereotype, like, I get it, but why would you come to that conclusion?
It didn't even say hi or hello.
They're like, you look like a basketball player.
You look like a basketball player.
Do you asked if you're a basketball player? That
Yes, I do. I do. But the thing is, like, I do understand sometimes.
It's just really weird.
Sometimes I get it if it's like we're talking about height, maybe. But
Yeah,
also I used
sure.
to go on the basketball team a lot in my predominantly Asian
Wait a
high
second.
school.
So you did play basketball?
I did not. No,
Oh,
they would
sorry.
tell me. You're like, I cracked the case.
Racism's over, everybody.
This one example.
Oh,
No,
she's a
I
liar.
didn't.
She did play basketball.
I'm the only one of my siblings who sucks at basketball, and
I suck at basketball. No, nobody cares.
Yeah.
I'm short anyway.
No one would believe me though when I told them I sucked at basketball, which is another little microaggression.
Yeah, that's so weird.
It's just like,
Just drop it.
but you're tall.
You're tall. It's like, say what you mean.
Yeah.
Do you mean just... You want to finish that?
Yeah, and then the second time was, my name is Rhiannon. It's a Celtic name, like whatever. So I was in line. I was in line. I was the cashier, and there was these two guys that came to my cash, and they had Welsh accents. Rhiannon's a Welsh name. They were like getting their stuff. I was like, ringing them through, and then one of them looked at my name tag and then looked at me. And then looked at my name tag and was like, "Why is your name that?" And his friend's face
friend was
went white.
embarrassed?
Like his friend's face went
At
white.
least
Like,
one of them was embarrassed.
and I was like, "Excuse me?" And he was like, "Well, it's a Welsh name, so I'm just trying to figure out why you have it." And I said, "Well, I'm Welsh."
Yep.
And his friend was like, "I'm so sorry." I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I was like, "Please leave. Please leave me alone right now." Like, what kind of way is that to approach somebody? You know what I mean? Why is your name
Why is
that?
your name... That's honestly such a funny way to ask. Why is your name that? What? Why is your name that? Like, what?
How are you?
Yeah.
But yes, I digress.
I lost a bet. Like, I don't know.
But I digress. Work sucks, and it sucks even harder with all the people you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get a drink. You want
Yeah.
me to get you a drink? Are you with me? Nobody
No,
goes.
no. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Work. You're
Yeah.
not a quitter for quitting.
Have you quit any jobs?
I've quit. I have never been fired from a job. And I say
As I sip my beer.
I say that I knock on wood. But quite frankly, I find that I'm more of like a righteous quitter.
Ooh, what does that mean?
Where I'm like, I get to a point where I just can't handle like the hypocrisy or whatever
that's fair.
anymore. And I'm like, hi, no, bye. like I cannot handle this anymore. And I just feel like things aren't going the way that I want them to go. So I'm going to quit now.
Is that a like I quit and I'm leaving today, or have you always been like a 2 weeks notice, good employee kind of thing?
I'm a 2 weeks notice like maximum person.
What a professional.
In the sense of like when people are like, "Oh, can you stay like a month or can you stay 2 months?" Like every once in a while, like if I know I'm going to leave a job because I'm moving countries.
Yeah,
which has
and that's
happened,
fair. That makes sense.
I'll give them like 3 months because I'm like, "Hey, I'm leaving at the end of this
That's
year."
very fair.
That's fair. But like when it's like the righteous quit where I'm like, I can't handle this anymore. I'm like 2 weeks from today. Like give you.
I usually panic quit jobs. Genuinely, like I'm
panic
like
quit.
I'm having an anxiety attack about this job. I'm gonna quit, which isn't ideal. But what's the? Trying to think of the fastest I've quit. Technically, the fastest I've done was I got hired by Marshalls, and I just never went. I just literally never went to training. I was like, I want to do
They're
something
still
else.
searching for you.
Yeah,
to this
and
day.
they paid me for training, which I never showed up to. And then they called me for like 2 weeks, being like, "Hey, we've noticed you haven't really been showing up to your shifts." And I was like, I literally never even
Who are
came to
you?
the job. Like, what? Like, but I was like, that goes to show how much they give a shit about their employees because they didn't even know who I was.
Yeah, that's
Like, sorry.
quite frankly, if you're at a job where you feel like you could quit today and no one would notice for at least a week,
You're allowed to just quit.
you're allowed to.
They either value you or they don't.
They don't,
So,
yeah.
If
And
they're
they
not
don't.
going to miss me, then I guess I'm going to go, right? I also did walk out on a break once. I quit on a break. I was like 21. And I got this job, and I loved the store. It was like a consignment store. My coworkers were great. The manager, not a great person. We were going into summer, and she booked every single long weekend off for herself, so nobody else could take any days during the long weekend.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I got invited to my partner's family's trip to Montreal. I'd never been to Montreal.
So nice.
They bought my tickets. They just paid for it, and they were like, "Hey, come on this vacation with us." So 3 months ahead of time, I went up to her and I was like, "Hey, Anna," that's her fucking name. "Hey, Anna." Maybe I'll cut that out. And I was like, "Hey, I got invited to this trip, and I was really excited about it." And I was like, "You know what? I only need like 1 day off." My coworker had offered to cover my other time, and she was like, "No, just," and like went back to what she was doing.
Wow.
So I think I went back like a week later, and I was like, "Hey, can I talk to you again about covering that shift?" And she was like, "You know what?" Before I could even like finish my sentence, she was like, "You know what? If you want to go on the trip, I'm gonna consider it you quitting." And I was like, "Cool." And I got my shit, and I went outside, and I went home. And they called me, and they're like, "Are you coming back to work?" And I was like, "No."
Well, I wish I could do the Joan of Arc like quit. Where you're like, please let us all rise up and
Crickets.
yeah, it's like capitalism down. They're like, I got rent to pay.
It's like, well, I recently, not that long ago, got unexpectedly fired from a job that I had just started, because I, God forbid, had a personal emergency on a training shift. So not even like one where I was the only person there or anything. Like I was a superfluous. I'm not gonna say that word. I was an addition that was not necessary. I was just there. Sorry.
We'll put some subtitles.
Just cut it. But yeah, I wasn't like a necessary staff member. I was just doing the training shift, and I couldn't come in. It doesn't really matter. And I let them know, and I was like, "I'm so sorry. Like, I know it's not cool. I get it." And they even said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Like, we'll figure it out." And then a day later was like, "Hey, so we can't keep you on staff." And I was like, "Oh, that really sucks." Given the nature of what happened, I was like, "Since you don't know what happened,
Right.
But I
have
was kind
to
of
save
like,
the world.
yeah, right. You have no clue what happened. Nobody asked. Nobody called me. Nobody said, "Are you okay?" They were just like, "Oh, okay, thanks for letting us know. You're fired." I think it's shitty. I know some people are going to be like, "That's what you got." And
I'm sorry, no. That's not what you
yeah,
do.
like it's
Yeah, it's one
it
thing if you do it
happens.
like every Monday.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But when you literally like I'm an accident prone. Very accident prone. And I'm lucky right now to have a job that like I can be like, I have to go to the doctor for 3 hours because today I cut my hand on something.
Exactly.
Before, I had times when I was like, this is where I talk about the disconnect between messaging and actuality. And they're like, "Oh yeah, you could take 2 days off. Go ahead. You'll be fine and we'll take care of all of your work." And you get back and it's like, yeah, everything's on fire and you have
all your work is
more
still
joy.
there.
Yeah. And then they tell you, please be happy and smile and look like you love being here. Even though we haven't given you any breaks or benefits and we told you that you can't have a day off after you've given birth because we need to make our quota on Friday.
If you work in a customer service facing role where you're like with people, that you have to be like, "Hey, welcome to the store. How can I help you today? What can I do for you? How can I lick your fucking ass?" Like literally, my voice doesn't really, it kind of goes here, and that's where it goes. Yeah. And my face kind of looks like that.
When I was a telephone surveyor, I put on what I refer to as a white voice. And
and that there is like a
there is
code
like
switching,
a code switching kind of
and that
thing.
happens for, obviously there's racial code switching and just generally like with
how
women
you
like
talk with
talking here and then being like, "Hey, how are you?" Like
Hi,
your customer service voice, right?
I code switched with the financial advisors we used to call, but I code switched into like Marilyn Monroe mixed with Jessica Rabbit because they wouldn't talk to you unless you sounded like somebody that was on a late night sex line. Like literally, we had to make quotas. This job was horrible, so we had to make quotas, and we had to like call. There was one survey where we had to call financial advisors on behalf of their actual like mutual fund companies and ask how they're doing. Like, how's the customer service? How's it going? And first and foremost, their secretaries were horrid. Talk about bad customer service. Their secretaries are like, who are you? Yeah, and I hate when people say on the phone. It's like, no, shut up. But when you get past them, you're like, fine, talking with the guy. I did so many attempts talking at my regular voice, or even like my happy-go-lucky customer service voice. No, I had to literally be like, hi, I want to know about your mutual funds. And they're like, oh yeah, oh.
Well, the thing is, listen,
please.
if they have to talk to a woman, she's got to be sexy.
You have to be sexy.
God forbid.
Money.
Yeah.
One guy actually laughed about how much he's making money every second of the day. I said, I can call you back like another time. And he was like, hey, babe, I'm always making money. I was like, oh, God.
Can I have some?
Someone kill me.
Oh, wow. I'd love to learn more about your money. You know, I have a love-hate relationship with people. Everybody does. But I generally like people. So when someone comes in, I'm just like, hey, how are you? How's your day going? Like, that's it. And most people like that, and they will respond in kind.
Yeah.
It's not some big bullshit fucking event. I have been... I've definitely lost my shit before.
I have, yeah.
Usually with the bank.
Yes. Banks?
I could and I won't.
Anywho, work sucks. I think I can say for 90% of the population is not getting paid properly. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and there's the other percentage which is getting way overpaid.
Oh, the 1% where it's like, oh no,
it might be bigger than that, but yeah.
I need my monies. Scrooge McDucking it on us. Yeah. I hope you guys are getting paid a good wage, and I hope if you guys comment on some of your weird work experiences.
Please tell us ridiculous work experiences. I'd love that. I'd love to hear the best quitting stories. Give me the quitting stories.
The best quitting stories, the worst jobs, and some of those really big work hijinkses. I'd love to hear. Yeah. Oh, that's the end of our shift.
We're punching out.